Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. This is episode number 3, where I'm going to be discussing law school and whether Ivy law schools are better or non Ivy law schools are better. So let's jump right in. Uh, First of all, an Ivy League school is a school which is long established and basically which has got a proven history of high academics and social prestige. Some of these examples include Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and these are international schools in the United States. And uh, domestic Ivy League schools, which are domestic meaning Indian, would include Nalsar, NLUs, and yeah. So let's understand one thing. Ivy League schools are basically, uh, you could say, big shot schools which have fancier infrastructure and which have got a well-renowned faculty, and yeah, that's more or less it. And non-Ivy League schools are completely the opposite. They might not have the world's best faculty, but or at least not a very renowned faculty, but sometimes you'll be amazed that the faculty at non-Ivy League schools are also quite good. Uh, Moving on, the first test that we would have to put the college to is in selection of Ivy Leagues and non-Ivy Leagues is the Berkshire Hathaway test, which is prescribed by Warren Buffett. In this test, it's a simple test. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. If we are to see whether what we have at present is truly worth it, we have to answer 3 tests. How certain are we of the benefits of the uncertainty? So when I say this might be sounding very like a riddle, but when I'm saying this, what I mean is we have gone through the non-Ivy League schools, most of us. I myself have gone through private schools, international schools, Ivy League schools, everything. So initially when I had gone to public schools and schools which were much cheaper, I knew what I was getting into. I knew the kind of environment I had. When I went to private schools and when I went to international schools, I had a little higher expectation from the school itself more than from me. I knew I was willing to study and I knew that I'm paying much more, so I was always wanting to work harder, but I knew what I was getting into, and I made my decision knowing that there is a cheaper alternative out there which can get the work done, but yet I used to choose these for the experience. So the first question is whether you know what you're getting into. Okay, and when you know what you're getting into, is it better than what you have already been in? So that's the first question. Second question that you need to ask yourself is, when will they emerge, the opportunities and the better experiences, when will these emerge, and how many of these are available already? Now, when this question is put, you need to understand one thing. Ivy League schools are not going to jump on every application that's made to them. They've got a limited number of seats. They're going to decide very selective few individuals who they want to admit to the program, and therefore you need to run something like an opportunity cost. If anyone's here with a background of economics, you would know what an opportunity cost is. However, for the general public, opportunity cost is basically the next best alternative. So you need to know that, is the college you're applying to the only college available, or are there other similar colleges on the same scale, on the same level? And if they are, how easy is it to get into these places. So you need to know that, because if you're going to give up your guaranteed public school to apply for an Ivy League school, and you're going to prepare for the Ivy League school, and you're going to damn the public school, you might lose out the opportunity on going to the Ivy League school, you might lose the opportunity going to the public school. So you need to know what are the odds to get in, you need to be practical about it, and you need to know whether you should focus all your attention to the Ivy League school. And the third question is it a risk-free interest rate? What is the risk-free interest rate? So in this part of the question, what you require to answer is, if you fail, what are you going to be failing? How much is the risk you're willing to put? And is it almost risk-free? So usually an Ivy League school is never risk-free. You're putting in a large amount of savings, and you are not guaranteed any returns whatsoever. Therefore, you're risking quite a lot in such a scenario. Once you apply this test to any Ivy League school, generally speaking, you would crop up with the answer whether it's worth it or not. And in my opinion, Ivy League schools are not worth it, especially because the cost of education does not match up to the value of returns. Well, if you want an experience, I encourage you to go ahead, go for the Ivy League schools, give these exams, get grilled, and do it. And if you get selected, it's something you need to think about, whether you can afford it and whether it's worth going there. Because honestly speaking, if you don't even go, it's not like the end of the world. Anyhow, moving on, this was the general answer. We might study it a little detailed in the later section of this episode. Benefits as far as work opportunity is related is, if you do get selected in an Ivy League school, you have a really higher rate of getting into one of the top tier companies in the legal fraternity. In India, well-renowned companies include AZB and Partners, Tri-Legal, Cyril Ambanchan Mangaldas, Luthra and Luthra Partners, and Shraddul Amarchand Mangaldas. So what I'm trying to say here, even though you have a higher opportunity to get in, the number of seats even available at these law firms is quite limited, and the competition out there, from my own personal experience and from knowledge, also hearsay evidence, suggests that people would go all out to ensure they survive in the office and in the workplace, in the work environment, and they can be ruthless. They might not be really emotional. They're not there to support you, fix your problems, and therefore you need to realize that these might not be the ideal places. I know a lot of people who have studied at Ivy League schools, and they have not chosen to go for these companies because they're like, it's not worth it, and they've rather settled into jobs that pay much less but give them a peace of mind. And those jobs don't really require you to have a Ivy League education. Another little known fact about these companies is, most of them work on the basis of connections. So if you have a solid connection and you're not from an Ivy League school, you might be cut out from the race, and somebody who's less deserving but having more contacts might just get a place. This is not a perfect world, and it's a very common feature that contacts plays a vital role. Moving on, supposing you say you get into an Ivy League school, just getting into the Ivy League school does not mean you're guaranteed success, does not mean your money has been well spent, does not mean you're going to make tons of cash after you finish your course. Sadly, you need to make sure you're attending every goddamn class. You need to be much more active on the campus itself in the extracurricular activities. You need to maintain top grades, because top tier companies, like I said earlier, it's really difficult to get into these companies. They only take like 20% of the entire country's Ivy League population. So you need to be in that top 20, and you need to be keeping your grades up. You need to be having an extracurricular history. You need to develop your own interests. You need to prove your own interests, and you need to connect with all your colleagues, because your alumni, your colleagues, they're going to help you down the line some way or the other. Like I told you earlier, connections, contacts makes a hell lot of a difference. So yeah, just getting into an Ivy League school, or getting into any school for that matter, does not cut you a guaranteed success. You need to be putting in efforts, and your efforts need to be all rounded. You need to be developing yourself as a professional. You need to be learning everything the trade has to offer, because like this old adage goes, a master of a master of none and a jack of all is better than a master of one. So it's always better to be a jack of all trades. It's always better to make sure that you know everything, because nobody is looking for really specialization. There's a common phrase, specialization is for insects. We are human beings. We have the potential to learn a lot and to adapt to a lot of changing circumstances. So you should be putting yourself out there. You should be learning everything you can, understanding everything you can, whether that's business related, whether that is not business related, whether that is private matters. You should be learning everything, so that you can be adaptive to your work environment and to your client. Moving on, Ivy League schools are expensive. They're extremely expensive. At the least, you are looking at 60 lakhs for a year of the course, and this includes this. When I'm talking about 60 lakhs, I'm majorly talking about Ivy Leagues outside of India. If you're looking at Ivy Leagues within India, you are looking at roughly 30 to 40 lakhs, which is a substantial amount of money. And for what are you doing such a massive investment? Because you could get the same degree from a local college, and the local college is going to cost you not even 1 lakh rupees. That's 60 to 40 times lesser than what you would pay for an Ivy League. And the odds are you would start working, and your returns on investment would be tremendous, because you would start working, and if you're really hard working and you prove yourself, within a year's time you would shine, and you would do tremendously well, and you would make up what you spend. In fact, you would start saving, you would start building a reputation, and therefore it's worth considering whether you want to put 60 lakhs into a Ivy League college. And for what? For their fancy equipment, for fancy beds because you're living in a hostel over there, or for fancy tables, or for a projector in your classroom. You're paying that money for those items. I'm not sure, I'm convinced that those are necessities, and that education would be bad or would not be up to the standard if it was without these infrastructure. So what's the next question? Is it the faculty you're paying this money for? That faculty, trust me guys, today's day and age, you have some phenomenal teachers out there who are willing to teach you for no money, or who are willing to teach you for fractional of the cost, and they might teach you online, they might teach you at your comfort, they might come home, tutor you, all of that. And lastly, would you be paying this money to build connections? Because of course, whoever's got 60 lakhs to pay for a year, that guy has got friends who are paying similar fees. His parents can clearly afford it. They clearly have got connections that pay them that much money so that they can afford tuition at that high rate. So it's is it those connections? Do you want to make such connections? Will they be beneficial to you in the long run? That's a question you need to decide. You need to decide whether these factors are justified for the cost. And alternatively, what you could do is you could go to a government college where you pay, like I said, 40 to 60 times lesser. You could get yourself a good computer. You could get yourself a good internet connection. You could pay a private tutor at, again, a fraction of the cost. And with all of this, you could even subscribe to legal magazines, legal websites such as Manupatra. You could subscribe to SSC Online. You could subscribe to Bar and Bench. All these kind of websites, you could subscribe to them to get legal information and learn more. You could also subscribe to YouTube channels. You can donate to YouTube tutorials which come for which are potentially free, or you could even invest this in starting your own chamber. I mean, look at what all can be done with that money. That money is ridiculously large sum of money. Anyway, not to discourage you, I'll be frank with you, international schools do have their own touch. They look very fancy on your CV, and when you go bragging about it, yeah, definitely article of snob appeal. People are going to appreciate that you are able to spend so much. They're going to appreciate, they're going to value you because they're going to know your business. You're talking money, and they know how much you've invested for your education. So therefore, again, it has its own perks, but is it worth it? That's the question you got to ask. Is it worth it? Because 30 years down the line, when you're really established, nobody is going to ask you which school you studied. Seriously, nobody's going to ask you. You went to Ivy League. Oh, fancy. And even if you honestly put in hard work, no one's going to credit you for the hard work. They're going to credit the Ivy League school. So is it really worth giving all that away for Ivy League school? I mean, is it? Anyway, that's person to person. Moving on to benefits of a non-Ivy League. A non-Ivy League has also its own perks. The main one, less pressure. When you're paying 60 times lesser value, you don't have the stress from your parents that you're blowing up crazy amounts of cash. You don't have the stress to perform in the workplace. You can take things at your own pace. You can take the chance to explore fields. You can take the chance to find what fits right. You can get a chance to go and work, get more work experience. You can also focus on other aspects of the profession. For example, you can focus on graphic design, you can focus on arts, you can focus on economics, you can focus on accounts, you can focus on other aspects of your business. So you can always focus on these aspects. Like I said before, a jack of all trades is better than a master of one. So keeping that in mind, you can learn these aspects so you can handle your own business, or at least you can know when you're being cheated, or you can know when someone is attempting to cheat you. So these life skills, life hacks, you can invest your time and you can learn these things in addition to your profession. If you work hard, you are bound to grow. Okay, the reward of working hard and growing and not being from an Ivy League school, it's any day much more than from an Ivy League school, because from an Ivy League school you feel entitled to success, you feel entitled to these things, and failure only makes you heartbroken and shatters you. But when you come from a non-Ivy League school, you know that failure has been a friend for quite a long time. And I'm not meaning it in a bad way, I mean it in a really kind way. It teaches you to be humble. It teaches you that, it teaches you that there's only an upside. Hard work will bring you that upside. These things you will learn from a private school, a government school. These things you're not going to learn from Ivy League. And Ivy League is filled with snobs, with rich people who only see wealth and who are probably going to inherit crazy amounts of money. And some of the stupid guys, I'm going to call them stupid, I'm sorry guys, but some of the stupid guys, they take loans to study at these Ivy League schools, and those loans, they spend their life repaying those loans. So I don't think it's worth it. I don't think taking a loan and then struggling every day, working hard, working your ass off every day to repay a loan is worth it. Alright. So what I would like to say is, it's not about where you are schooled, but what kind of person you are that leads you to success. So you've got to remember this. You are the decider of your destiny. You are the controller of your fate. So if you work hard, if you develop good personality, you are bound to be successful. There's nothing in the world that can stop you from getting that success. And finally, like I just said, you have the ability to achieve anything you want, so long as you put the hard work and you continue to have endless desire towards what you want to achieve. In addition to that, today's technology that we have, the internet, computers, they are so advanced that you can literally learn anything from them and achieve anything from them for absolutely fractional of the cost. I would like to conclude by saying, take advantage of the tools at your disposal and success is guaranteed. Don't think that getting into an Ivy League school is like a do or die situation. It is not. Yeah, definitely they bring the snob appeal, but personally I don't agree that they are worth it. I feel they're too expensive, and I feel that if a person is going to use the internet well, he is going to succeed. He will find a way to succeed. That's all for this episode. Stay tuned for future episodes. Thank you.